I mean, how often do you turn down a $100,000 check? The answer is when it doesn't do the job. What's up, everybody? Rob Ferretti here, halfway across the world for today's video sponsor, Vessi. Now, you may not have heard of Vessi. They make everyday footwear, which is stylish sneakers that are comfortable and waterproof, and that's key. That is why I'm here in Venice, Italy, to show you just how convenient it is to have waterproof footwear. Here we are for proof of concept. Obviously, this is going to be fairly slippery, but yeah, water resistant, waterproof. This is just straight up standing in the water, and my socks are dry. Don't believe me? Let's go a little deeper. Like, you wouldn't normally do this with a sneaker. Just proving if it rains, you're going out, whatever, you're doing just fine. Front, back. Totally worth it. These are my go-to shoes by my door. They're giving away a pair of socks of your choice to the first 100 shoes sold using my code, SOCKSSR. Check out their early Black Friday sales at Vessi.com/SSR. So if you want a comfortable, stylish shoe, check them out. It's Vessi.com/SSR. Use code SOCKSSR. I'll put it in the description. It's Vessi.com/SSR. Check them out. Give them a try. All right, everybody, Rob Ferretti here, and let's talk about diminished value and loss of use. These are two terms that you've heard in the automotive space, and everybody would love to have them. They feel that they're entitled to them, but it doesn't always end up falling into your pocket the way you'd like it to. So loss of use and diminished value. I'll start with loss of use. Loss of use is when you have a rental asset or you just have a vehicle, right? And you don't have use of it anymore, whether it's impounded, whether it's damaged, it's crashed, you just can't enjoy your asset, therefore you may seek to collect loss of use, right? It comes in more frequently when you're talking about an actual rental company than somebody who's just privately owned, because privately owned, you're entitled to a replacement vehicle, and most insurance policies don't count for like a Lamborghini replacement vehicle as much as you kick and scream. They may just say, we're giving you $45 a day, $70 a day, $30 a day, whatever it is, and that's what you're entitled to. If you're a replacement vehicle, you can't do anything. I think Turo is like that too. If you rent your car out, Turo may only pay you $50 a day for loss of use, wherever they cap it. So even though you're renting your Lamborghini on Turo or your Porsche, whatever it is, if the car's down for a month, you get $1,500, and that doesn't even cover your payments. Being without your asset is actually a very big detriment to a lot of rental companies. This car, perfect example right behind me, I'm currently in a lawsuit against an insurance carrier for loss of use, and this one, I was out 7 or 8 months on the car. It was a long time. And loss of use isn't just send a letter and you get your loss of use, right? Loss of use could be you send a letter, they laugh at you, they say there's no coverage, you have to file a lawsuit. There are different ways to pursue that, but I just got offered for this one accident we had on this car, a insurance offer was $95,000 for loss of use. That wasn't their first offer. Their first offer was like $15,000. However, when you start adding up not having this vehicle for 7 months, you're like, well, Rob, like, that's $15,000. That's great. Not having this vehicle for 7 months, $15,000 isn't going to cut it. And now neither is $95,000. $95,000 was my offer to them back in the day when we first started this. But now $95,000, I start doing the math, we're like $85,000 into legal fees already. That means I've written $85,000 worth of checks to a lawyer to get them to this point. So what my actual loss of use might be is about $600,000, which is the daily rate times the number of days down. Getting that is not always as easy as you think. Like, you may get that, they may appeal that, they try to get to something that's equitable. That's why most of this stuff never goes through trial. It just gets to the point where they ultimately settle it. And the sooner you settle, usually the more beneficial it is to both parties to settle sooner, because you're not incurring legal fees, because legal fees suck on both ends, because they make both sides spend more money. So nobody's netting as much as they want, or they're spending more than they initially had to. For the $95,000, now that I'm $85,000 in legal fees into this, 95 is not going to cut it because I wouldn't have taken 10 to begin with. Otherwise, I would have taken the 15 or 20 you offered. My equipment lease payment on this is $4,500 a month, give or take. Don't quote me on that. But if you add that up right there, you got $35,000 or $40,000 just in car payments for 7 months while it's sitting around. Then you have the insurance payment. The insurance on this car, not cheap. The insurance on this car is probably about $35,000 a year. So you're talking 70 grand right there before you do anything. And that's just for car payment and loss of use to stare at it. Loss of business, the fact that I'm not renting this car out. Like, I could be renting this car out for 7 months. Instead, I'm making zero. So I was just initially going at this like, you know what? I'll take the zero revenue for 7 months, but I want to at least cover my costs. You made me had to hire an attorney just to get you guys to come to the table to pay for the car because you were delaying it. It's a much bigger thing. The other portion I was talking about was diminished value. Diminished value means since this car was in an accident, it's worth less. And it's usually 10 to 20% depending on the accident, depending on the car. And the car was $200,000, it's 40 grand right there. So start adding this up. This is a 6-figure loss that I have on a $2,000 rental. And sometimes you have to eat it. Other times it's worth the fight. This one is worth the fight because we have a very strong case as to the guy crashed the car. The insurance company should have covered it. They caused this tremendous delay. And we had to get an attorney involved just to get them to square up and pay for the damage to the car, which then took a long time to repair because there was part shortages ultimately when they ultimately came to the table and paid for it. So what we're looking at here is not so much a coverage issue, it's more of a bad faith claim against the insurance carrier that's not doing their job. A lot of states have laws that you have to resolve or at least take a position on a loss in 30 days. We pushed this insurance company forever. They wouldn't take a position. We were always coming up with an excuse as to what they were doing to delay the process, and we were harmed, so we're going after loss of use. A lot of people as individuals or people that don't have rental companies, they try to collect loss of use. You may get lucky, you may not. Most of the time, believe it or not, loss of use is recoverable to an extent. There's usually a little bit of a negotiation there, and they leverage that to pay as little as possible to get it done. Diminished value, a lot of the times, it's like, especially with this, we're not even arguing about diminished value because they're stating that their policy explicitly excludes diminished value. Now that's tough, right? Because excluding diminished value, I rent this car out for $2,000 a day, it gets crashed, they give me my loss of use, right? They make me whole on the fact that the car wasn't rented. I'm still out $40,000 in value loss in this car that I can't recover from a $2,000 rental. That's sadly part of the business. And a lot of people don't realize this, but when you start renting other people's cars and they're like, yeah, we're going to split the revenue, I'm going to be a middleman, I got the customers, you got the cars, we're going to make it happen. Accidents are usually what do a lot of those relationships in because the guy realizes in the end that he just made $30,000 renting his Urus, but he lost $60,000 because he's got 2 accidents and 25,000 miles on it, and that's usually a big problem. So loss of use, diminished value, 2 very large things that people tend to overlook that cause a lot of harm to your company. You can't always collect the daily rate. Like I can't collect, what is it? Let's just say 7 or 8 months, so 8 and 3, 240 days at $2,000 a day is $500,000. It's hard to collect $500,000 in loss of use for an insurance company, but there is that if they do want to push it for whatever reason to the end, and we do win the judgment successfully, they may have to pay that out. And you've seen me make videos about people that get $6 million judgments against the dealer on a $200,000 car. That's just the way the legal system works. But if you're concerned about loss of use and diminished value, make sure you pay attention to that. Even if you have a commercially registered vehicle and a commercial insurance policy, you're not going to get that from your own insurance policy on a first-party claim. You'll get it potentially on a third-party claim. But in order to do that, sometimes you got to get lawyers involved, and then it's a point of diminishing return. And even our attorney was like, look, this is where we're at. We've got $95,000. We were going to take that a couple of months ago. I'm like, yeah, but are you going to take a haircut on your bills? I've paid you $85,000. I turned down $20,000. Why am I going to turn down $20,000 and then take $10,000 6 months later when you start getting into depositions and everything? Now, the biggest suck of this, the money suck, is lawyers. Anytime you get lawyers involved, they're just writing briefs at each other, and it's like, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, and they're just volleying back and forth, and nothing's happening, and both sides are just accumulating legal fees. So that sucks, but it is part of the business. It is something to be aware of. I mean, how often do you turn down a $100,000 check? The answer is when it doesn't do the job. And right now, my loss is even greater because I've got the actual loss of whatever 140, 150, plus I've got another 90 now. So I'm at an actual loss of almost $250,000. So that settlement number keeps going up, and the further it goes until you get to trial, it's strange to me why certain insurers choose not to just write that check and be done with it. But we'll see what happens. We'll let you know what happens with this one. Rob Ferretti, thank you for watching. It's something that a lot of people tend to misunderstand, that they think loss of use and diminished value will apply to every claim and they'll just walk away happily. It's not always the case. See you next time.